Hi guys, welcome to the latest video. Thank you for joining me on my channel. Really appreciate all the kind comments and the likes and the shares, etc, etc. So keep them all coming. Going to be making the sideboard today. Hopefully I've filmed the process well enough to cover it for you guys, so you can see what's involved in making something like this from start to finish, and pick a comfy seat because it's going to be quite a long one. So we'll jump straight into it and go back into the workshop at the start. So here we are in the area where I store my timber. So we've got some English oak on the floor here, Accoya, various bits of hardwood, softwood, and then at the top I've got some oak boarding, so it's some English oak boards. I've had these for about 5 or 6 years now. Wanted a nice project to use them on. They're all about 400 to 430 mil wide. They were actually full width, so they were about 900 wide, but the previous owner of them cut them down the middle to be able to lift them. So I'm going to grab one of these down for the top for the sideboard and get it into the workshop. Okay, so I've managed to get the board from the top of the rack into the workshop on my own. I'm a bit out of breath, as you can probably hear. These are about 2.6 meters long, so I only need a 1800 or 1780 mil long worktop. So I'm just going to run a random orbit sander, take all this dust off. You see where it's been stood in the barn for quite a few years. It's got covered in bird crap and whatnot. So just going to take a orbital sander and see what imperfections we can see, or a belt sander, and run it over the top, find the best part of the board. It looks like it's going to be between this split here and this split here. So we'll just take a sander to that and see if we can find anything wrong with it. There's a few little spots of woodworm I can see in it. So yeah, like I say, we'll take a sander to it and expose the grain underneath and see if it's worth using, or if not, go and find another piece, because we're going to need a bit about 420 wide by 1800 long. Okay, so this video is a bit different. I'm going to have to do some commentary over the top of it. While I was filming, I didn't have an awful lot of time to spare, so I didn't do too much explaining of what I was doing while I was actually filming. So make the best of a bad job. I'm going to try and talk you through it as we go over the top. So I'm just cutting the big slab here to a rough length between the imperfections that I've found after I've took the surfaces off. Have a quick look at the end grain here, at how wide or how close them grains are together and how flat they are across the board. It's really nice to see. It's a lovely proper bit of English oak, and it's a pleasure to use. So because of the imperfections, which you'll probably say later in the video anyway, I cut the two pieces into well, cut the one piece into two. So I cut them down the middle and planed them up so I could orientate them so the best faces were on the top side of the sideboard, and also had to find another piece out of another board to make up the width of the top. I then grabbed the domino and jointed them together. So you want to put a narrow domino in one piece, and then the piece you're joining it to, you want a single narrow domino in one end or somewhere along it as a reference position. And then the rest of them dominoes need to be that wider setting, so that it gives you the wiggle room to get the two pieces together. If you're using PU glue, make sure you get a shift on with it, because it soon goes off and makes it really difficult to glue it together. Okay, so I've glued the oak boards together. Due to the nature of them, and there's a few bits of woodworm. There's a bit of looked like where there'd been a nail in the tree or something, sent it black, and a hole, and a bit of rot and whatnot. So I've not been able to get even boards out of the planks that I've chosen. So what I've done is I've got a nice figured piece here, thin strip on the front. I say thin, it's still about 90mm thick, and then 2 boards to make up the width of the unit. And there's a nice bit of figuring on the front edge here. I wanted to try and capture that, and this piece of dark here will be cut off because it's about 30mm wider than it needs to be at the minute. There's a bit of black staining here that's coming through from the underside, so the other side's actually a lot worse. So planing it down any thinner is not going to get rid of that. So probably going to have to look into something like a oxalic acid to try and remove that blackening there. Otherwise, pretty happy with how it's turned out. There's no woodworm in it that I can see, and they're lovely looking boards, so it should be perfect for the job. Okay, so next I moved on to the face frame. So I've got the timber out here. It's all about 20. It's all from X25mm stock. It's a bit thinner than I'd normally use, but it's just what I had to hand. I've basically set out where I wanted the positions from my drawing that I'd done, and marked a centre line for all the pieces, and run a domino in the tight setting to the centre lines, and the corresponding domino in the ends of the rails in the centres. You saw me very quickly sanding the edges with a hand block to just keep them nice and flat and square. So I don't like to use a machine or anything, or just sand them by hand without a block when they're being glued together like this in the frame, because you lose that really nice sharp square edge that is your joint line. So with anything like this, when you're sanding the inside edges, just make sure you keep it really nice and square to keep that square joint nice and tight. Again, with the PU glue, you don't get a lot of time, so make sure you're well prepared for the glue up, what you're going to be doing, and check it's square and everything within the time before it goes off. These are the end panel pieces. You can see the piece of birch ply is blue. It's from another project, left over from another project, so it's already had some paint on it. It's a good idea to paint the panels before you glue them together if you can. It just saves any denibbing into the corners, which can be difficult at times. Or it's not difficult, it's just quite time consuming to get it even with the rest of the panel against a shaker door corner. Next I moved on to cutting the carcass material, so this is 18mm birch ply. I just dimensioned it to the width that I required of the cabinet, and then sat it against the face frame and ticked the points across to transfer them to the plywood, and then squared them lines over to give me the positions for the upright pieces on the carcass, and you see me putting them in place now with the dominoes that I've put in the face frame. Once they're all in position, I've pre-drilled the birch ply to the lines, and then I'm using a 3.5 by 40mm screw into the end grain of the birch ply to screw the carcass together. But make sure you pilot drill the end of the birch ply to ensure it doesn't bubble at all or get any swelling within it, because when you come to painting it, you're going to see a swell mark if you don't pilot drill them screws. Next I moved on to some solid oak, some pieces that were left over from the slab, and I cut them up, made them quite chunky, and then hand cut some dovetails to make the drawer for the top. Just having a quick pre-sand of the insides of the drawer and the drawer bottom before I glued it together. Once the glue's gone off, I've sanded all the outside edges and got them nice and smooth, and then just gone over all the corners and took the arris off with a hand sanding block to keep it nice and even. I've also glued the doors up at this point, and if you look in the description, there is a link to, or a more in-depth video on how I made the doors. So there's quite a bit to them to get them looking nice and keep a nice finish. Once I'd sanded the outsides of the cabinet, I housed the hinges into the frame and the doors, and got them swinging on some small brass butt hinges from Carlisle Brass, and just placed the drawer front in place that I'd fitted as well, just so I could give a bit of a pan round and an idea of how the project had come on at this point. Then I fitted some small buffer stops to limit the travel on the doors so that they sat in the right position flush with the frame. Fitted these top and bottom, and they help to hold the doors in the right position with the magnets that I'd let into the top and bottom of the doors, and counteracting magnets in the frame as well. Then I just pinned and glued a small piece of 10mm by 30 Accoya around the top, set back 10mm to create a shadow gap from the oak top to the painted cabinet. Then I moved on to the solid oak top. I planed the front edge so it got a nice smooth finish to it, and it was nice and straight. Moved across to the crosscut, cut one end square, set up a length stop to the length of the cabinet, and then cut the other end off to nice and square and to the right length, and finally ripped it down to nearly within the size, and then just run it once more over the planer to get that finished size to my worktop. Ran it through with an orbital sander from 80 grit up to 240 grit, and then I put a hard wax oil over the top of it. In the finish, I've done about 15 coats of hard wax oil, and it looked pretty stunning by the time I was finished. As this is my own project for my own house, I thought I'd try something different with the drawer to the top. So I've actually sprayed the drawer with a acid cat lacquer, just to see how it stands up with longevity with the English oak versus the hard wax oil that I used on the top. The acid cat lacquer is certainly quicker to apply, so we'll just see what the longevity and the usability of the two products are like over time. The only thing with the hard wax oil is it's really easy to touch up and recoat in the future if you damage it or want to refresh the finish. Just adding another coat is really easy, whereas the acid cat lacquer causes a bit more of a concern for future maintenance. The paint I'm using here through my air-assisted airless setup is a waterborne lacquer from I think Sherwin-Williams, and it's called Lime White. Hey guys, so it's assembly day today. The best part of the job is when everything's painted and finished, is putting it together and seeing the final result. So to fix the top, there's a piece of 18mm plywood in the top of the cupboard. So I've just drilled some 12mm holes in that, and I'm going to use some 5x60 screws. So there's 20mm or 18mm plywood, and then there's a 10mm shadow gap. So that's about 28mm. So the screws are going to go into the oak about 30-35mm at the most. So not too deep, and I'm going to use like a stainless washer. I might use a 70 screw actually, because the screws will not stick in as much because they're not countersinked in the timber. So I might use a 5x70 with a stainless steel washer, and just a penny washer like this, and that's so that if the oak decides to move at all, the washer will just slide and the screw can move within the 12mm hole, and not destroy not split the oak or destroy the cabinet with the movement, because it's such a big bit of oak. It's always a bit unsure as it's been acclimatised. It's old oak. It's been in the barn for years, but yeah, I'm just a bit unsure as to whether it's going to shrink or stay where it is. So I'm allowing for the fact that it might move by giving the holes some clearance for it to move. You get some 70mm screws. I'm just going to line it up with the combi square. Drill some pilot holes. That's the 3mm drill in the right angle cut. I'm just going to drill it in the centre of that 12mm hole. Take a washer, screw. Check the alignment. Do another one this end, and then just go underneath and fill all them in with plenty of screws. So I'm just using the penny washer over the screw like that, and then that can move anywhere in the hole in the top. Once I'd finished screwing the top down, I just got to work and started attaching all the ironmongery that I'd fitted previously. So drawer runners are Grass Dynapro drawer runners with a 4D clip pack, so they've got 4 dimensions of adjustment. And then moved on to the doors, fitted all the hinges, the handles, doorknobs, shelf brackets and buffer stops, etc, etc, and got it ready basically for taking to the house and installing. Here we have it finally in place in the house, all finished and looking good. Just a few like pan shots showing the drawer off and the action of the drawer as it closes. It's quite a wide drawer, so I'm pretty pleased with how it turned out, that it works quite well. Even if you just pull it open and close it using one handle, it does seem to work quite well. And also a quick video of the closing action of the doors. I've not shown it within this video, but I've got quite a neat little trick with rare earth magnets for a soft close on your cabinet doors. So they just pull the doors in nicely, and the actual air cushion within the cabinet means it will never slam. So it doesn't matter how hard you throw the door shut, the air stops it from slamming, and then the magnets just pull the door in nicely to a close.
Press the door there, after you open it. Oh, that looks well smart, don't you think? Oh, that looks really fancy, darling.
Snazzy. We did a bit of a filmed reveal for my partner. I'm not sure she was too happy about being filmed, but it seemed to go down well anyway. That's it for the build on this video. Hope you've enjoyed watching it. Hope I've managed to explain everything through the commentary over the top. I know it's not as good as explaining it as you're there and doing it, but like I said, time constraints meant I was struggling a bit to film this one and create a good video. But hope, like I say, hope you managed to take something from it, and give us a thumbs up and a comment if you want to know anything else.